Welcome. This segment is on dealing with tough situations. In an earlier training segment, you were instructed to work together as a staff to determine what were the most frequent and what are the most damaging behaviors you address. These will fall into low, mid, and high-level incidents. You will need to decide at what point an incident must be referred to the principal and is beyond what a teacher can manage in the classroom. One of the best reports that I have received regarding BBRD is that principals handle fewer incidents because teachers are consistent in handling the less serious events by intervening early and often. So the little incidents are not ignored and the climate is more secure and productive. It must be realistic in our expectations, however, that despite the positive changes we can make in school climate, there will be times of serious incidents or chronic problems that can challenge even the most virtuous individuals. Let's talk about how to handle the little things, those small annoying problems. Here are some tips. The best response might be a great question. Is it hurtful or is it helpful to following the 4 guiding principles? Which principle do we need to work on? Rearrange seating or stand near disruptive students. Proximity helps. Coming up with positive reinforcement with expectations of better outcomes. Finding ways to encourage takes less energy than the negative consequences after the failure occurs. Be careful to suspend your judgment and criticism so that you're not predicting failure in advance. Students often report that the teacher is pretty set in a negative expectation. Can you think of a time when this has happened to you? You can also limit the number of allowable disruptions by giving a limited number of cards or tokens to certain students who have difficulty staying in their seats. If they know they have 5 passes to get up, they will consider how they use them. This has been found to be helpful. You are setting limits and giving the student a way to succeed in meeting your expectations. Also, a lot of us understand the idea of social collateral, or the ability to navigate the social scene with ease, or the inability and a sense of discomfort socially. Many times the small issues can be handled with one-on-one conversations in what might be referred to as conversations with the power centers or those with social collateral. Taking these individuals aside and asking them to be helpful to others can help the weaker individuals feel stronger. If you take this strategy, be specific about what you want. And it's important to do 2 things. First, let the student know that you do not have the answers, but you think this might work. And then ask, what do you think? Could this work? Secondly, after a brief discussion, be sure to give the student some ideas of ways to support others and make it time limited. For instance, let's try this. What if you allowed Robert to play soccer for 1 week? Maybe give him some tips to help his game. What do you think? Just a week. Then we'll talk some more. Will that work? Playground and areas of less supervision. Train your volunteers and staff. Training should include scenarios that can be scripted for their responses so they are confident. Have a clear idea of the job description, how it is to be carried out. Be sure that these individuals are vigilant in watching students and not visiting or talking on cell phones. Use a simple checklist and follow up. Have a clipboard for note-taking and follow up on incidents that are reported. Use the simple conflict skills and good apology models for minor peer conflicts. Refer to the training video segments 7 and 8. Be friendly and encourage positive interactions. Be approachable. That helps everyone. Expect kindness and promote fairness. When tempers flare, being calm and reasonable is the most helpful thing you can do for students. Prayer and reflection are a good beginning. Being tough is acceptable if students think you're being fair. They depend on adults to set limits, even though they may push the boundaries. More serious incidents. If there is physical force or fighting or serious name-calling, that must stop immediately. Use a statement such as, "I saw what happened," and it will stop immediately. Next, be sure to check on the one who was harmed without drawing too much sympathetic attention to that person. A few brief words to check in will help the person feel acknowledged without humiliating him or her in front of the harmer. Separate the students and investigate what happened. Parents of both harmed and harmers should be contacted. Determine the best course of action and involve parents, students, and teachers in your decisions by holding a conferencing circle. After actions have been taken, make sure to touch base for follow-up and make sure things have improved. For the process, it's important to take these simple steps. Check your own virtue first. What am I operating out of? If it's gentleness, I want to be sure that I'm really aware of my level of frustration or impatience with those students. Next, pray with students. After that, we ask, which guiding principles need work? Who is responsible? How can we make things right? Use the forms included in the workbook. If you are to have a conference, be sure to open with prayer. Commit to agreements. That means we all want to talk about what virtue we will demonstrate during this time. What would we like people to see us doing in terms of virtue? Establish that each states the guiding virtue and that we now want to establish the injustice. What happened? How did things go wrong? The second thing we want to do is make it right, figure out how to balance the scales again so that everyone feels there's been justice served. And then the third and final piece is to guarantee a better future. Recap and write and sign agreements. And then close with a prayer. There are other things to think about in addition. Seating. Where will we sit at the table? We should never have two opposing parties sitting next to each other, but there always should be neutral seating with someone in between. Who's doing the talking? I find that the best examples of strong, positive conferences are ones in which we as the adults are listening to students talking about the places of pain and how that has affected them and how they intend to make it right. These circles are designed for that particular use, that you see students solving problems on their own. If we can teach them to do this in a state of prayerfulness and virtue, we will have given them a skill they will be able to use throughout their lives. What we also find is that there has been impact on witnesses who watched the harm occur. How will we handle that? And we need to think about what we can do to strengthen relationships over time after there's been harm. In your reflection, you can continue to follow and read in your comprehensive guide about this process more fully. But I would like for you to think of a time that you could have been more effective in handling an incident with restorative practices. If you had a do-over, what would you have done differently? What is one change you would like to make in the future? Be sure to write your reflections before the discussion begins. This makes the best use of time. As you reflect on this and discuss it as a group, consider what changes you'd like to make personally and collectively in your building to become more deeply committed to restorative practices. Thank you.